So, the Pope, leader of the Christian Church, God's own man on earth, heir of Saint Peter, Pontifex Maximus. See, there are many names and terms that you can use for a Pope, but one thing is certain, you can never even imply that he could be something like a leader of a cartel, huh? Well, that is, unless you're living in 15th century Europe and you like your clothes to be colored. What am I yapping about? Well, buckle up, story time. See, if you're a law-abiding businessman in medieval Europe, minding your business and trying to make some money, one of the best possible things that you can do is trade, like today. But it's not just any trade, it's a trade of wool and dye and everything else that is necessary to create clothes and to make them colored. See, at the time the trade was flourishing, you can buy your raw supply of wool, for example, in one corner of the world, you can send it to another to be spun, and then yet again into another one to be created into clothes and dye. But there is one thing that is absolutely crucial for this process, and there is a certain type of salt like alum. See, basically what it is a type of mineral that allows for dye to stick to the fibers of the clothes and not just be washed away every time you dip your toes in a local creek. See, at the time, most of the alum supplies were coming from the area of Eastern Mediterranean that was controlled by the Byzantine Empire. This was fine because the Byzantines were more than interested in trading with the Western Europeans, but in 1453 something catastrophic happens. See, that is when the Constantinople fell and suddenly the Ottomans control all of those supplies. Now, as you're probably aware, the Ottomans weren't really in the friendliest of terms with the West, and not only that, but this meant that if the Western kingdoms want to buy alum from the Ottomans, they're funding their expeditions, they're happening across Europe against themselves. And not only that, but the Ottomans realized what kind of leverage they have, and they started cranking up prices until it come to the point that it didn't really make sense to buy anything because you're not making any money out of it. Luckily, however, a man named Giovanni de Castro happened to be walking around the area of Western Rome in some of the volcanic deposits when he found something shiny, white, and salty. He quickly realized that this is actually alum. He probably licked it and notified the Pope. See, this was very important because at the time, Pope was a head of state, and sure, you can say that for the Pope of today, but the Vatican of today is just a neighborhood in Rome, but back then, the papal state was one of the biggest players in medieval Europe. Now, because these deposits were firmly in the heart of the papal state, Pope realized that suddenly they can eliminate the threat of the Ottomans, but he also realized that you can make a lot of money out of this. So he quickly set up the mining operation, the mining started, and the papal state started supplying Western European kingdoms with the raw materials. But the Pope Pius II was also a pretty good businessman, and he realized that sure, selling a raw material is a one thing, but what if you can refine that, then you can sell the refined material as well, and you can get even more money, and that's exactly what they did. Now, to take things a step further, he also realized that if you are a good friend with somebody who, let's say, has a lot of money and a lot of banking experience, like the Medici family, then you can have people who are buying those supplies from you, get the loan from them, from which you will get a cut surely, and therefore you have pretty much a closed loop. But see, not everything was a smooth sailing, because although you have a closed operation, you still have the competition from the Ottomans and some other places such as Naples. Now, the Pope starts sending envoys across Europe, and he's trying to persuade these leaders of the European countries, these kings, to, let's say, get a little cut from the whole operation if they decide that they're not going to be buying this thing from anybody else except from the papal state. See, at this point, Pope decides to change up a strategy. See, he makes a deal with the King of Naples to create what basically can be described as a cartel, in a sense that they will be controlling the production and supply of alum across Europe to guarantee the steady income for both places. They were sending their agents to each other's warehouses to inspect the production, the refinement, to make sure that they're not selling more than there was promised. They even had the keys of each other's warehouses, and everything was going according to a plan. Now, because this immense power and leverage, the Pope started to crack up the prices, and the whole thing started to look a lot like it was back when the Ottomans controlled the whole thing. Now, because the envelope was pushed a little bit too far, these European kingdoms weren't able to afford to buy this product anymore, so they started turning a blind eye to the illegal supply that was still coming in from the Ottomans. Now, the Pope is not just any person, as I said at the beginning, he's a man of God. So if you cross somebody like that, what if he, for example, tells you that the God doesn't like you anymore and that you're gonna be burning in hell? But because he's a pope, he's a man of God, he would never do such a thing because that is bad. I'm joking, of course, that's exactly what he did. He told all these kingdoms that if they're not buying the stuff from him, he would excommunicate them, and then they will have a world of problems. See, if you're in the Middle Ages and you're in a Christian nation, being excommunicated is the worst thing that can possibly happen to you, probably even worse than death. See, first we have the fact that if you're religious and then you're excommunicated, well, you're gonna be burning in hell, and that's not good. Now, the second problem is that if you are, let's say, a monarch, you can lose your title because the people don't want to be led by somebody who doesn't really have favors with a god anymore, and you need a pope to put a crown on your head, so that's a problem. But once again, this works to a certain extent, but as the time progresses, new discoveries are happening across Europe, and new deposits of this material are being discovered pretty much every year. The funniest one, in my opinion, is what the Alpine miners discovered, and that is if you urinate on the walls of former salt mines, well, you can actually create this kind of substance or something similar that works in the same way. Now, all of this, combined with the continuous influx of supply from illegal and legal sources, led to pretty much the collapse of this monopoly, and by the 16th century, the whole thing unraveled. But it's just fascinating how important this whole thing was, because when the Pope was trying to amend some of the things that Martin Luther saw as a problem, one of the exceptions that he actually included in that is the break for this illegal trade. Basically, there's a lot of things that the church would tolerate, but if you keep trading with the Ottomans or some other non-Christian nations, yeah, you will be excommunicated, which he didn't like really. Now, some historians even suggest that this very monopoly incident is what kickstarted England into becoming one of the world's greatest power, because shortly after they started mining alum in the Yorkshire Hills. So that's a very short and interesting story of probably the world's first cartel. So let me know what you think about this. Did you know about this story, and is there anything else that you would like me to cover? In the meantime, if you want to hear more from me about some interesting facts about history and science, please consider liking, following, subscribing, or whatever you got to do over there, commenting as well, and stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one.